All right, what is up, y'all? Will here with Schedulefly. This is the Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast, brought to you by us here at Schedulefly. Super simple, web-based restaurant employee scheduling software backed by legendary human customer service. Like my personal cell phone is on our website. Lots of places, and you can find me easily. And I have a flip phone, and you can call it or you can text it. And I'm happy to talk to you about Schedulefly. And also, we have a very affordable price point. We bootstrapped the business 19 years ago. We got over 5,000 customers, and we're the number one rated restaurant employee scheduling software. You probably never heard of us because we don't do advertising. We just take good care of our customers and grow through word of mouth. But we do have a 30-day free trial, schedulefly.com. Sign up for it anytime. No questions asked, no hassles, and simple monthly pricing. And do please call my cell phone or text me. I'm easy to reach and always happy to talk to you about our business. But now let's get into why we are here, which is episode number 660 something, I believe, of the Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast with David Bessinger down in Charleston, South Carolina. And he is with Melvin's Barbecue, and he's got on his master's shirt, which is where he's going to be going later today. But David, introduce yourself.
Well, my first name's Melvin, go by David. Last name's Bessinger. I'm the owner, third generation owner and operator of Melvin's Barbecue here in Charleston, South Carolina.
All right, man. So tell us the origin story, my man. I love family businesses so much. My grandfather started Brawley Seed Company in Mooresville, North Carolina in 1946. After he got back from World War II, my uncle ran it for a while. Now my cousins run it. It's the coolest thing in the world. I'm so proud of them. I love when a business goes from generation to generation and carries on. It's one of the best things about small businesses in our country. So I'd love to just hear kind of like the whole backstory and how everything got started and how we got to where we are today.
Well, my dad was Melvin, and he was one of 11 kids. So, about 93 years ago, and actually 1933, my dad, at the age of 10 years old, stumbled across his father in their shed. They came from Orangeburg, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And so we're German. So a lot of the Germans settled in Orangeburg, and that's where Orangeburg comes from. It's a German name. But he stumbled upon his dad making some type of sauce. Yeah, and he didn't know what it was. And so my granddaddy, Big Joe, they call him, invented what we claim to the fame as the first mustard-based barbecue sauce in South Carolina.
Ooh.
So, and so in 1933, for some reason, I don't know why, he did this. I know that a lot of the kids, all of them, grew up very poor. This was during the Depression. Obviously, he made this sauce, and then, he started cooking hogs in the ground. And the word is a lot of his family and kin, friends that came around on the weekends to have pork or pig, and they used the mustard barbecue sauce, and it was a hit. So he really didn't. He was a farmer, and let me back up, so I'll be all over the place. But he was a farmer and a logger at the same time. Didn't really farm a lot. More of a logger more than anything. I don't know why he waited 6 years, but in 1939, he decided to go into the restaurant business. And it was in Holly Hill, which is about 30 minutes from Orangeburg. So, again, they tried their trying to make it in during the Depression. It only lasted 2 years. So he went back to logging. And then my dad went into World War II. And when he returned, his father wanted my father to buy him this piece of property that he saw on Main Street in Holly Hill. At the time, Dad had saved X amount of dollars and used that $1,500 to buy the land on Main Street in Holly Hill. So in 1946, they opened up another restaurant. It was called Joe's Restaurant. That was the only stopping place between Charleston and Columbia. So a lot of important people would stop by, like the senators and governors or whatever the mayors or whatever they may be. And it would stop there, and it was more of a uh, breakfast, lunch, and diner. Served barbecue on the weekends and so forth. So that became really popular. Dad, after that, after the war, he wanted to go into the Citadel, wanted to get his education. I always asked him why the Citadel. Well, I like the uniforms, you know. So he did that, and when he was at the Citadel, his dad passed away, had a heart attack, and so forth. So his mother had asked him to come back after he graduated and to run the restaurant. So he did that. I'm going to try to fast forward this a little bit, but so in the mid 50s, you know, when Eisenhower when he got back to the States, he realized, hey, we need interstates, just like the Autobahn in Germany. And so he came up with that. They decided to build I-26, and Dad knew then Holly Hill was probably going to dry up somewhat, you know. So he decided he wanted to leave, and his one of his older brothers, JD, had opened up a piggy park drive-in, and that's what it was called back in the day, on Rutledge Avenue. He was the first one of the first brothers to open up a piggy park drive-in, and so my dad actually worked for JD for a while, and until he decided he wanted to get his own business, have his own restaurant. So he went in, him and his younger brother decided to open a restaurant in Charleston in 1961. And from there, you know, that's where it all began in Charleston. There were some barbecue restaurants in Charleston already. Not a whole lot, because back in those days, it was more of a seafood town and
Yeah.
seafood city. And so, you know, with hard work, determination, and my dad was one to never give up on anything. He worked long hours, and from there, um, I mean, it was just embedded in him. So, from 1961 until the day nowadays, I mean, we've been there forever, been in the business forever. Um, just serving the same barbecue and the same barbecue sauce that my granddaddy invented in 1933.
Man.
It's
Yeah, okay. Let's
Yeah,
talk. I got so many things I want to ask you about, but first, let's talk a little bit about barbecue sauce.
sure.
Um, I grew up, we were talking before this, you know, I grew up in Charlotte, and
Right.
we're sort of like in the middle of like the Western North Carolina, like sort of like um, red sauce, and then
Yeah.
the East North Carolina, which they do the vinegar, and I've
Vinegar.
always liked the vinegar. That was always my thing, and I I had my whole life until I met my bride in the late '90s. Um, we ate barbecue one night, and she said, "Where's the mustard?" And I'm like, "Mustard? What are you
Yeah.
talking about mustard?" He's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah,
Yeah.
you put mustard on barbecue." I was like, "What do you mean you put mustard on barbecue? Are you
Yeah.
crazy?" And so I learned about South Carolina mustard. She grew up in Lexington.
Oh, she did? Okay.
And
Yep.
I can't remember the name of the joint down there, but they've been around forever. But they did the mustard. So when we went, I'll never forget. We went to Batesburg, Leesville one time for some
Oh, yeah.
parade or something like that, and I had mustard based barbecue, and I was like, I got to tell you, this is really good.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
And, it
What's the origin? Like, how did mustard become the sauce of
the
choice?
staple. You know, we got 4 different flavors here in South Carolina. You know, like I said, we came from Germany. I really didn't understand any of this until I got older in life, and I was always wondering why my dad liked onions, hot peppers, mustard, and I'm like, "Oh, this all stems from coming from Germany." You know, it really does. A lot of the Germans settled in Orangeburg, but they also settled in a lot of Czechoslovakians settled in Texas, you
Uh-huh.
know, and that's where your sausages come from, and they had it here in Orangeburg as well. And it's pretty cool when you start getting older, you know, a little older in life, and you start thinking about these things. You know, when you're in your 20s, you really don't
Yeah.
care. You just work. And so I, you know, I think it's a pretty cool story. We come here in the 1700s. The Bessingers did. They three of them that came from Germany. Two went on the East Coast. What my dad told me, one went west, out west. And so, how we ended up in Orangeburg, like I said, from the 1700s, I don't know why, but
Okay.
the Germans were hard workers. Um, my granddaddy Joe came up with this sauce. I don't know how he did it. But gosh, when I was growing up, that's all I knew was the mustard-based barbecue sauce. My
Yeah.
dad saw it changing a little bit in Charleston. So in 1970, either 71 or 72, he excuse me, he invented the what we call the Melvin's Southern Red barbecue sauce because he could see a need for a tomato base sauce,
Yeah.
not just mustard all the time. So, and then, once in a blue moon, we would get someone from Texas coming in the 70s and saying, "Do you have any brisket?" And I was like, "What's brisket?" I didn't know what brisket was. And then we knew they were from Texas, but, you know, that was just once in a blue moon. So, fast forward, we only had two sauces for like decades. Here just recently, I hired a pit master from Tennessee, and I knew there was a need for vinegar sauce. So, I bought his recipe and I'm now bottling it. It's different. He's from Tennessee. It's different from being tart. It's more of a sweeter, savory type vinegar sauce. And then I came out with a sweet red. Well, lo and behold, the sweet red is starting to sell a lot more than my golden mustard. I don't
Oh,
want it to, but people love that sweet red. And so now we offer four flavors. Coming out with another one here pretty soon. Yes, we started off, in 39, didn't last very long. The depression hurt us or hurt my granddaddy. But we brought it back to life here in 46 and we hadn't stopped.
so let's talk about cooking a whole hog barbecue. I mean, like this was like a thing that and now it's you can get it a lot
It's
of places.
exploded. Yeah.
People are starting to become familiar with it. I actually spent the only time in my life I haven't lived in Charlotte was 2 years that when my wife and I first got married, before we decided to have kids and raise a family and all that, we moved to Burbank, California. And I didn't know. I thought everywhere had barbecue. And I was like, where's the best barbecue place? They're like, well, what do you mean?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
you want to have a barbecue? I'm like, no. I
They're,
mean, like, I want like pulled pork. They're like, what?
yeah.
So
They're,
this is
they're
like,
grilling burgers.
yeah, this is like 25 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of that's changed, but like talk about just what the process is of cooking a whole hog. And you mentioned earlier your granddaddy was, cooking it in the ground, and talk about how that process works and how long it takes and why it makes the meat so just incredibly
Sure.
moist and savory.
Well, here again, my granddaddy did it in the ground. My dad, I don't know how why we didn't do a whole hog back in the old days, but we didn't. I don't know if it had anything to do with the city of Charleston back in the 60s, but we didn't start off with cooking whole hogs. We did the hams and the shoulders. The hams with the hind leg of the pig and the shoulders of the front. But throughout those years, that's all we have done. I have not cooked whole hogs.
Okay,
I'm
gotcha.
only strictly cooking nowadays are shoulders.
Okay,
Now, I do want to start doing, and here, let me tell you a little bit about this too, is that, back in those days, there's more of a gas assisted pits that,
Mhm.
we used, and they were called Southern Pride or Old Hickory. And I could see the writing on the wall around, um, maybe the late 90s. People started going, they were kind of venturing off to all wood. And I decided I'm gonna switch over to all wood pits. So, I went out to Texas, looked at some areas, decided this was something I wanted to pursue. Still did not think about cooking whole hogs. I just wanted to switch my pits to all wood pits. No electricity, no gas whatsoever. Not electricity, but no gas. At any rate, I'm using what we call J&R pits. I'm using some Texas stick burners nowadays. as well as, and this is what a lot of the Texans do. They use a lot of these stick burners, 500-gallon, 1,000-gallon propane tanks that they convert over. So we're doing that. I have a trailer coming in the next month from a place out in Texas called Syntex Smokers, and it's a low country hog cooker. So I am going to be offering whole hog, but it's going to be for my caterings and maybe one day of the week, and just to see how that goes, because it's hard to find people that are going to sit over and just throw wood in there and shovel all day. It's hard
Mhm.
enough finding help to do what I'm doing now. That's just going to Charleston's different. I mean, there are so many restaurants, and we're the only restaurant in town, only barbecue restaurant in town that doesn't serve alcohol. Plus, we're closed on Sundays. So
Yeah.
it's more of a family restaurant, and it's hard to find good help. I
Mhm.
still struggle today, looking for some people that are gonna wanna do that type of work. So, we're not cooking whole hogs, we're cooking shoulders at this time. Maybe, like I said, maybe in the future for the whole hogs. But right now, yeah, we feel like the shoulders, we've been doing it for forever, and, maybe I'll change in the future, but for the time being, no, I don't do it.
Well, you just addressed something twofold here. One is, yeah, if you're cooking a whole, I mean, you basically need somebody there cooking overnight,
12 to 14 hours. Yeah, most definitely.
which gets into a broader topic now, which you touched on, and this is affecting the entire industry, is labor.
Yes.
Finding, keeping good people, it, especially with rising wages and rising additional costs and labor
Mm.
being such a big chunk of your cogs. So you've been at this a while. Talk to me about, what's changing in the workforce and how do you find and how do you keep people these days and what adjustments have y'all had to make around labor?
It all changed in 2016. I can still remember it. You know, I started advertising in my front yard of my restaurants, now hiring, cashiers, and from $13 an hour to $26 an hour. And people took notice of that, and they were like, wow, I can't believe you're paying that much. But I'm like, well, I can't find anybody to come to work. They don't want to work. And so money talks, so I was like, I got to raise the rate of pay. And, to this day, I mean, we're paying high schoolers between 13 and $15 an hour, plus they get tips. And I'm
Mm.
paying full-time cashiers, between 16 to $20 an hour plus tips. And I don't serve alcohol. So, I have to pay a lot more than the other restaurants because, cashier only gets like $2.35 an hour, or a waitress, plus they get great tips. And we're not like that. We're more of a semi fast food restaurant. It's more casual. It's not sit down. You place your order up the front and then you sit down and we bring it to you. Um, but yeah, I've had to be very competitive like that. And obviously the food, has gone up. Um, I tell you, I went through a lot in the 80s and the 90s when my dad and I paid off our mortgages. I didn't, he refused to pay me but certain amount. While my other friends were getting paid a lot of money to do what they were doing. He was like, I don't care. We're going to get debt free.
Mm.
We're going to pay these mortgages off. So like I say, you know, for anybody that wants to go into the restaurant business, um, one thing you got to do is you got to work long hours, day and night, weekends. And back then we were open on Sundays until 1992, until I finally talked my dad into closing on Sundays. But yeah, just to keep him with everybody else here in town, we've had to increase the rate of pay. And I don't know if I could have done this, Will, if if the mortgages weren't paid off, because it would definitely be different.
You say the mortgages, do you mean the mortgages on your building?
Yeah, I own the we were very fortunate. My dad had the forethought of buying his land. He wanted to own his property instead of leasing it. We did lease some places we leased back in the 70s and early 80s, but he wanted to own his land.
Yeah.
So, paying off the building, the equipment, and the land, you know,
Yeah.
because and that was hard. You just
Well,
don't get paid what you think you're worth. You can't. You gotta pay off your mortgage. You gotta pay your mortgages and your property taxes first.
yeah, the debt services can
Yeah,
be
most definitely.
tough, especially with fluctuating economic cycles and interest rates and things like that. But once you hit, yeah, well, I mean, if you're debt free, you gosh,
Well, and then, another thing about us too is that, I think a lot of restaurants today are backed up by, investors, and we aren't. We
yeah,
weren't. So we really did have to put in those 80-hour weeks. And, growing up, I didn't see my dad rarely. I mean, he worked 18-hour days and, and he just, he had that mentality that he was never going to give up. Being raised in that generation, I mean, he worked till he was 82, and I don't think I had that desire to work till 82. But that was him. I think all those that family, brothers and sisters, they all worked very hard because they grew up very, very poor. They didn't want to be poor again.
they understood it, and they understood that the Great Depression came after a booming decade out of nowhere, and nobody expected it, and so we don't understand that can happen, and they did. My grandfather was in his family came from Germany too, and
Yeah,
he had he had a really strong work ethic and
yeah.
farmer. I mean, he was outside and until he passed when he was like 92, and we'd
Oh,
we'd always say, "Papa, you're 89. Like, why do you get up and go out in the yard every day and do all this stuff?" He said that the day I stop working is the day I'll die. And I mean, he just about made it there.
yeah.
That's not something. I'd be interested to get your opinion on because you said you don't necessarily want to do that, nor do I. But I also look at what I saw and what I learned, and I imagine you're the same of understanding the importance of that work ethic. And I'd be curious what you learned from your dad that you've admired and carried on through the business.
Oh, it's the quality, service, and cleanliness. Um, we try to buy the best foods that we can. That quality has always been top notch. The service, I was taught from as a young boy, your customers are the number one. Without them, you don't have a business. So treat everybody with respect, including your employees. Um, Treat them with respect. And, if you do those things right there, I think you're going to have um, you'll have loyal customers and employees. Matter of fact, I hope my managers feel very well respected because, they've been with me. Some of them have been with me for 20, 30 years. I have this one lady that has been with me since my dad hired her when she was 18. And I'll tell you, she's still with me and she's 71.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Amazing.
And we've had numerous people like this. I had a guy that worked with me for my dad for 35 years. And he graduated from the Citadel, and he just retired in 2016. So, and he graduated from the Citadel in 76. So, I mean, we've got a lot of people. I think one good thing too, Will, is that we're closed on Sundays. I think that's still important to a lot of people. And I think they have that opportunity to go to church, spend time with the family, whatever they want to do. They know that's going to be a day off they have every single week. And we haven't wavered since 1992. It took a while for me to talk my dad into that, to closing up. And when we did, we didn't look back. I got the idea from, we had a place in the Citadel Mall, back in the day when it opened in the 80s. And I heard one of the Chick-fil-A operators talk about Truett Cathy. He said, if you can't make it in 6 days, you can't make it in 7. And so I was like, man, I've never heard that saying, but I love it. And so I went back and told my dad about it. And he was like, he didn't believe in it. He said, no, we're staying open on Sundays. But finally in 92, I was like, listen, I can't work 7 days a week. I just don't want to do that. So we did. And, it's been great. Sundays has become a day where I probably could make a lot more money on a Sunday than I could on a Monday. And,
Right.
yeah, but Sundays are still sacred to me, you know.
I was going to ask you if you got any inspiration from that because I've always admired Chick-fil-A for doing that because they're,
Yeah.
I mean,
And
they,
Truett he grew up about the same time my dad did, I think, so that generation. He's probably grew up during the Depression too.
yeah.
Yeah, I admire that.
Well, it's nice to acknowledge that a lot of people that is a sacred day and it's and you need a day to
To
decompress and
but
rest
yeah,
and well so tell me about the restaurant scene in Charleston has just it's always been, I mean, since I was a little kid, they're all, Charleston was known for great restaurants, but there's so many now, and Charleston is just growing so fast. Um, has that been a a good thing in some ways and a challenging thing in others? I'm good
well,
because more people are coming there, but then challenging because there's just so many restaurants now.
there's so many barbecue restaurants, which is
Yeah.
great because, I think there's enough to go around for everybody. I think
Yeah.
it keeps you on your toes,
Yeah.
and I've always put money back into my business. I always feel like having a very nice, yard outside. That's your first impression, the way the restaurant looks, and then trying to keep up inside. But yeah, just I welcome everybody. I really do. I think it's great for the community. Like I said, there's enough to go around for everybody. I think we've been very blessed to do what we do each and every day. We wake up and I'm able to give my employees a way to live. And
Yeah.
and so we've been very thankful and very blessed. We're able to still stay in this business for this long. We had we've had some barbecue restaurants that have come in the 80s and the 90s, and we might have been a little worried. But one thing my dad told me, he said, "Listen, don't worry about everybody else. Worry about your own place. Keep
Yes.
keep it
Amen.
clean, keep your
Yeah.
quality going, and keep your service going, and they'll come. Don't worry so much about everybody else." And I've always remembered that, and that's my philosophy. I really don't try to worry about everybody else. And I'll go over and taste their food occasionally, nothing wrong with that. But I think that's good for the community to let them know that, hey, I love your barbecue too. And
Yeah.
it's just mine that I love. But yeah, that's just the way I've been taught, and that's the way I believe today.
Do you know Carl Sobosinski up in Greenville? You ever heard his name?
What's his name?
Carl Sobosinski. He owns Table 301 Group um,
Okay.
up in Greenville, and they got a bunch of great restaurants. His flagship place is called Sobeys. And then you may have heard of Steve Palmer with Indigo.
Yes.
Steve?
Yep. Yep. I don't know him personally, but I've heard of him, and he's got a lot of restaurants.
He got a lot of really good
A
restaurants.
lot of restaurants. Yeah.
I was with Carl a few years ago doing we were talking and we were at Sobeys. And Steve Palmer, there was this like new development across the street from Sobeys, this nice Westin hotel, and he had a
Yeah.
couple of restaurants that Steve was putting in there. And I said, Carl, do you worry about stuff like that? Like, Steve Palmer's coming in, he's putting these nice restaurants. You got this nice restaurant, and he said, Will, not only do I not worry about that, I encourage that because that just brings more people down to this side of the street. And when they want
Yeah.
what we have, they'll come here. And when they want, and I don't worry about the stuff I can't control. I worry about the stuff that, we can control inside our four walls. But I think it's great to have more restaurants. That means more people will come here to Greenville to visit, to be at these restaurants and go stay at that hotel. And I just thought that was such a smart, wise, healthy
Yeah.
philosophy because when you get worried and you're thinking about your competition all the time, you're operating out of a state of fear. And that's a tough place to be. And it's not
Oh, yeah.
that you can change. You double down on taking care of your employees, taking care of your customers, being there for them, not worrying about anything else. And that tends to, if over a long period of time, that tends to always work out. It's a simple formula, but if you play the long game, it works.
I think a lot of people they have a lot of fear today by social media too.
Yes, sir.
When
Mm.
all these reels come out, um, it's really, it's it's just changed so much here in the past few years. We've had to hire a PR firm. I've never had a PR firm ever, just to kinda keep, in the let people know who we are. There's so many people that moved to Charleston that have never heard of Melvin's Barbecue, and so, I've had to, um, I've had to do that. That's been very helpful. But I do think that a lot of people worry so much about what this guy's doing, what that guy's doing on from social media. Um, you know how it is. I mean, even high schoolers is just it's the devil's advocate, I think. It's just it can be good for you and it can be bad for you. Back in my day, and I don't know if when someone had a party in high school, you didn't know about it until Monday. And after that it was over from the weekend, and by Monday or Tuesday you didn't care about it. Nowadays they see it right there. Hey, and we weren't invited. And so a lot of kids get are upset about that and kind of hurts their feelings. But yeah, social media can be good and bad. Just can't worry so much about the other person. Just do your thing, and that's all you can do.
That is simple and eternal wisdom that is easy to understand but hard to execute on. But dude, that is why I have this flip phone.
I love it. I love it.
I had a iPhone
Yeah.
11 until 6 years ago. I could not. I
You
mean,
know,
I had a problem because I was scrolling and I was like, I can't. I kind of felt like I tell people I felt like, let's say I were an alcoholic and I wanted to stop drinking. It's probably not good to have a fully stocked bar just sitting in my house right in front of me.
right.
So I'm right. I had a problem, so I got rid of it, and I haven't looked back. But I got to tell you, it is nice to not have. It was so funny. I was sitting outside of a restaurant the other day, and I was wait. We got some takeout, and I was waiting, and it was like they're like it's gonna be about 20 minutes. So I was sitting there, and I was like, I don't have anything to do. So instead of pulling out a phone and scrolling through, I just I stood up and I started opening the door for everybody that was coming in and out for like 20. I
Did
probably
you really?
opened up for like
Yeah.
50 people. It was so
Yeah.
fun. Like people go, oh,
Oh,
thank you. Oh, yeah, no problem. Like that's such a better way to like
of what?
act
Of,
with like the people around you than just sitting there like
yeah.
looking through this stuff. So
So, when my wife and I go out to dinner, we'll see other couples just looking at their phones and
ah,
not talking to each other.
kills me.
And it's very addictive. Man, I might have to go back to a flip phone because I'm tired of the iPhone myself.
Well,
It's
the good news is you're going to the Masters, and unless something's changed, they don't even let you take those things in there, do they?
no, they don't, and
That's
I'm
good.
glad. So, they'll on Wednesdays though you get to take a camera, so
You
I'm
do.
excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no phones.
Well, okay, so we we talked beforehand, and I'd love to dive into this subject a little bit, which is you've got 5 kids, and so you and your wife have been able to raise 5 kids, um, while owning and running a restaurant. That's no easy task because the restaurant is, even if you're not open on Sundays, even if you got a great team, at the end of the day, heavy lies the head, right? Like there's always something going on in a restaurant, and
There is.
ultimately it comes to you to decide, or you get the call at 3 in the morning that the freezer broke or whatever. So talk about this because I think it's an important part of the conversation, particularly for people you know, that are getting into running or want to run restaurants or want to own restaurants or have just started restaurants. It can be a wonderful, wonderful and very rewarding career if you have the right mentality and you have the right financial model. But you have to, know it's not a business where you can just go, I'll just hire somebody to do this for me and I'll just,
Right.
make money. It is a tough grind. So then to raise 5 children on top of that, I mean, I tip my hat. That's an impressive feat. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. For anybody that wants to go into the business, I think, realize they must realize that, hey, and a lot of people have looked at us and saying, oh, you make an X amount of dollars, but they don't understand the back end. You got to know your numbers.
Yeah.
That's first and foremost. You got to make sure my dad always gave me a guideline of what I should save and what I should spend. and I've always followed those guidelines, with labor, food, and paper percentages. Know that, because you're not in the business just to break even. You're in business to make money, make a living. Raising the kids, is tough. I got two of my daughters are in my office right now, working that. One does the social media. Even though we got a PR firm, we still do some other little things on the side. The other one does the books. I got my son who's in at the Melvins on James Island. He's a learning how to be a pit master. So
Nice.
he arrives at 5 a.m. and gets off about 3, and he's 26. So without him, I don't know what would have happened to Melvin's, because I'm sick going on 67. I was going to run it as long as I could, and I got some great employees too, great managers. So I'm glad he's come into the picture. He was working in Charlotte, and just didn't like it. So he
Yeah.
came back and wanted to try this, and hopefully he's going to be the fourth generation pitmaster, an owner, an operator one day. Like I said, the oldest is a nurse at MUSC, and then the fifth one is at the Clemson Life program in Clemson, South Carolina. So it teaches special needs kids how to live on their own. She's a junior. And so we got high hopes for her to live up there. 80% of those kids that graduate live up there in Clemson and work. So she wants to be on her own, and she doesn't want to come back and live with, mom and dad. So we're excited about that. She's already found a boyfriend and wants to marry her. I'm like, okay, Bryce, we'll see. We'll talk about that. But yeah, it's been tough to have 5 kids, and because I'm constantly thinking about Melvin, so I even dream about it all the time. My wife wakes up and says, "You know what you were dreaming about?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. Tell me." And it's always about the restaurant. And I said, I'm sorry. It's just so ingrained in me. Um, but yeah, it's just you got to be willing to work long hours, day and night, weekends. Everybody thinks, oh, you go in. My dad was not that way. I didn't have a father that worked from 9 to 5, and there's nothing wrong with that. But he chose a lifestyle differently, and
Yeah.
so that was, like I said, there was days and days I didn't see my dad, and I was very jealous about other fathers. My friends' fathers would show up, my dad couldn't sometimes, and then he would show up. I would go to the Citadel basketball camp, and then he would show up, in his uniform, and he would smell like barbecue, and so forth, and but yeah, that's just just got to go in there saying that you're going to have to be a hard worker. Don't think you're going in there and you're going to let a bunch of kids run your business and then you can go do what you want to do, because that's going to be your downfall. I might do that now. I'm semi-retired. I
Yeah.
still check on them occasionally, but I got some managers that have been with me for over 25 years, and I trust them. And then obviously, we do check behind everybody. I got one of my daughters is now doing, I'm training her to do inspections weekly on the
Mhm.
restaurants. And even though we have the Department of Health that comes whenever they want to come, which could be once every 3 months, they could come every day if they want to. But I think they too have so many restaurants to worry about in Charleston. They just can't get to you all the time. So I decided to have one of my own kids go in there and give an inspection the way I think it should be inspected. That way we can keep the place looking clean and everything's working properly. But I think those are the goals right there, man. If you want to get in the restaurant business, by all means, go for it if that's what you love. But you're going to have to sacrifice a lot. But then in the long run, it's going to be worth it one day.
Restaurants have been around. Restaurants will be around. There's things that are changing about restaurants. Um, the thing about, to me, restaurants are sort of the last, you know, there. And if you're part of a faith, I mean, there's just not many places you can go to be around people that you care about, that you want to either celebrate or mourn. Um, and I think that that's becoming more important now than ever. Like you mentioned, folks that go out and sometimes you'll see a couple and they're both on their phones. And you still see that. I think you see hopefully you're seeing less and less of that, because I think all of us are realizing we spend too much time on our phones. And it's like restaurants to me are like the one place where you can go. And like when we go, I've got a family of 5, and you know, those phones ain't coming out. Like, and it's like the one place where we go. I mean, like, even at home, sometimes it's
Yeah,
just, we can't get all 5 of us, like, just, it's like we kind of almost have to go out. So I think the more we're surrounded with this tech, the more people are really understanding how important restaurants are. They really understood during COVID because they thought, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And like, I don't want my local restaurant to go, and they would do everything. And then now I think people are realizing it's like, you need a place to go now. Almost, you almost
dude,
have to have a place to go to get out of your normal environment and have somebody take good care of you. And obviously the food's got to be good and it's got to be clean. But what you talked about is just, you just need to feel appreciated and welcome.
appreciate it. Most definitely. And customer service is so important. I think sometimes you might not have a good meal, but if that service is outstanding, sometimes you forget about the little details. It's not little, but the food. But if that service is top notch, and that's what's hard to instill in these. I deal with a lot of young kids. My restaurant doesn't serve alcohol, so, we have the teenagers, just like Chick-fil-A. I mean, look at the great service
Yeah.
and they got a bunch of kids running the places too. And, that's why my daughter, she also, does the orientations, for these newcomers that come in. We just started doing that. And, because that's so important. The managers are shorthanded. They don't really have the time to do this. They're worrying about setting up the restaurant and checking all the stations out. So when you have a lot of newcomers, and I hate to say it, the kids today, some of them, they don't even know how to sweep or mop or wipe a table down. So we're really training them our way, and that takes time. And, you know, and then, customers can get a little impatient too with, kids that really don't know what to do. And, that's why I came out with everybody else has to, but, the name tag that says trainee, kind of give them a little bit of grace, because they're kind of, they're 16, 17 years old. And, some of them don't even like to look at you in the, eye to eye contact. That's tough. And they're so distracted. And the thing about that too is trying to keep their phone in their pocket. I try to take it away and put it in the office, but that doesn't work out so well. Maybe the schools can do that, but it's tough in the restaurant business. Everybody's got their phone in their back pocket and they're all looking at it half the time. And that's a struggle, is to focus on the employee, the customer, instead of your phone. Don't worry about what post just got posted, right? I'm kind of sort of a little bad with my phone too. When we go to the restaurant, my kids tell me, put the phone down, Dad, because you know what? Now since I've spoken to you, I might have to think about a flip phone.
Well, it's,
Because the
it's
iPhone
funny
is
because
bad.
it does enable you to stay and you want to know what's going on at the restaurants.
Yeah.
It's like I just feel like there's some, in every aspect of my life, there's some balance of having enough technology, but not too much. Like, perfect is the enemy of good enough. To me,
Mhm.
like, oh, this perfect phone that does it. This thing's good enough. Like,
It is.
it does the main things, and the convenience that comes along with the iPhone that has all these other things. Okay, but uh, is that really, really like, is that making your life really better, or
Yeah.
just giving you so much more noise that it's making you more distracted, more anxious? And I gotta tell you, this has been a really interesting trend on this podcast for the last 6 months. I can't tell you. I bet half or more of the owners I've spoken to, I bet 75% of the owners I've talked to have mentioned eye contact. And that is such it's just a tragedy that we have this generation that has come up and they don't know how to make eye contact because they're so used to looking at these screens. They don't know how to answer the phone and talk on the phone.
Right.
And I, t- I mean, I tell my kids all the time, like my kids, well, my daughter's 22 and then I have a 19-year-old son and a 16-year-old son. And, you know, the 19-year-old's in college. So I've only got one left, but I'm like, hey man, today, like, I just want you to focus on one thing. Hold eye contact just a little bit longer than you're comfortable because
Yeah.
that's something you and I, it's like a natural thing. And you got, you know, you
Sure.
raise, like you look, you know, you look up at an adult, you look in their eyes. And when you're talking to somebody, you look in their eyes and it's very hard. And
It is.
we have put this generation, in this situation. So we have to help them learn because the more that we lean into this stuff and the more that some technology makes life easier, then you know, we always, as human beings, we want interpersonal engagement and interaction. We want to feel important. We want to feel that we matter. And that comes with eye contact and authentic engagement and people always want to feel validated. And you can't feel validated or like you matter if somebody can't even look at you or they're like looking at the phone all the time. It's like, that does nothing for me. But when you have this, you know, and restaurants are a great place to do that. Just sit over a meal and talk with your family and share. It is the best thing. I mean, all five of our family members agree with this. When we go out to eat dinner, you know, other than like vacation, it's the best time our family has in any week because we're so focused on each other. And
You know, when you were growing up, especially me too, we all sat around the table at home
every night.
for dinner every night.
Yeah.
Now, my dad was there sometimes, but not all the time. So it was my sister and I, and my mom. But yeah, when we all four of us got together, you know, those were the good old days. Um, and a special treat was on Sundays when we had TV dinners on a TV tray
Right.
and sat at the den but that was in the late '60s, you know, early '70s. But yeah, those were fun times, and we have just like my kids, and I'm sure your kids too. I mean, they 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 can't even pick up the phone, ask the person to prom or on a date. They have to text them. Um,
It's just
and I'm
crazy.
like, what? You texting someone to go out? We didn't do it that way. You know, we actually had to pick up the phone and we either got, the answer was yes or no. You know,
Yeah.
you either got denied or she accepted. But, yeah, that's just, it's really is that eye to eye contact is so important.
Well, it's just you know, I think about that a lot because restaurants are a great first job for so
It
many,
is. Most definitely.
and it's just something that this is what I was saying earlier, like it's always changing and there's always things that you have to be aware of in the restaurant business. But it's a great opportunity for restaurants like yours to train young people to put the phone away, make eye
Mhm.
contact, make people feel welcome. Because honestly, when you do that, I mean, you're the one who gets like, you feel good about it because you can tell you just made that person smile, right? Like, you know, when you actually make somebody feel welcome, you're going to feel good yourself, right? So it's
Sure.
giving to get. And, this is a generation that just needs that. And, you know, it's tough because of COVID and that was hard.
That really
A lot of those
changed
kids. And
really
so
changed
you know,
a lot. It did.
yeah,
My dad, I just, you know, changed the subject here. When I was growing up with him, we'd go on vacation or wherever we went in Charleston. There would be old employees that he had hired, and they were older in life. And he would come back up to him. Dad would remember some of them, but most of the time he didn't remember them. But they would say, "Hey, Mr. Bessinger, I just want to tell you, you gave me my first job. The work ethic you instilled in me has really made me the man or the woman that I am today." You know, and that really made him, feel good, and that made me feel proud, to have a father that did that, and I really picked up on that, and it's so true. I mean, you know, there's nothing wrong with hard work. You learn I mean, my dad would never ask us to do anything that he wouldn't do. And
so
so, you know,
yeah.
he made me jump in a dumpster just to push down the trash further down so we wouldn't have to call the company to come and get a dump again because it would be an extra charge. So I was like, "You want me to get in the dumpster and jump on that thing?" Yes. So I did it and I was embarrassed, but I did it, you know. And, but just, he just a different generation back then. I don't know if I can get anybody to do that today, but, I think he expects 120% out of his kids. Um, but
Well, so you've hired a PR firm for the first time,
yes.
and they contacted me, and they're great, by the
Yeah.
way.
Oh, yeah.
Talk talk about how that process, why you went through that process, why you felt you needed to, why you selected this firm.
Well, I felt like I said, there's a lot of barbecue restaurants coming into town. We still had a great local, business, but I felt like all the people that are moving here, I had friends would tell me, say, "David, there's all these people that are moving in here." They would always mention Melvin's Barbecue, and say, "Man, you need to try Melvin's Barbecue." And I've never heard of that. They said, we're actually the oldest barbecue restaurant in Charleston, and family owned, continuously owned restaurant in Charleston. So, and so I felt like, wow, they are people all over the Tri County, and we only have two locations, and so we are the mom and pop sort of speak. But I just felt like my wife and I thought about it. Just felt like we needed to hire someone and give it a try, and we went in there with thinking about, okay, let's give it 6 months. We'll commit to 6 months and see if this works. And we've been there over a year now, and
Mm,
they've been great to work with. And I just felt like it was time. Always, back in the day, it was billboards, and
yeah, right.
really want to do billboards anymore. So I felt like this was the where I wanted to put my money for
Well,
right.
tell me about the like, did you know you wanted to work with them, or what was the selection process like?
Yeah, I think I think my wife contacted them first. I'm not involved. I have to be honest with you. I'm not involved as much as I probably should be. My wife and my daughters attend those meetings monthly, and and then they tell me what's going on. And if I got some ideas, I'll relate it to them. I occasionally meet with them sometimes, but I'm more semi-retired. I've been doing it for 46 years, and I'm just like, you know, I'm just very thankful that I got my son involved, and I got some great employees. But yeah, um, Charlotte and them been awesome to work with.
This is Charlotte Berger PR,
Yes.
right?
By the
Yeah,
way, right.
yeah, they're great. So are you? Is it true that I meant to ask this earlier, but your mustard base recipe has not been written down? Is that right?
My dad never wrote it down. He always he had it in his head. So, I've memorized it as well. But, I have someone here that, that makes it for me. Obviously, I can't make it like I used to because I got a bad back, and, I would have to pick up everything by hand. And we had a 300-gallon vat back in those days, and I would put all the ingredients in and let it churn for about 24 hours, and then I would have to draw it out by hand. And it just got to be too much for me,
Yeah.
with the bad back. And so I had to find a company that here locally, and so they make my sauce now for me, and they bottle it up, and so it's been a great fit.
Well,
But I had to give them the recipe.
yeah.
Okay. But it's a non-disclosure agreement we had to
Yeah.
sign, obviously. But, yeah.
So, so this is cool. You got your son involved. So we hope
And
this
my
business
daughters,
and your
2 of my
daughters.
daughters.
Um, do you so you feel optimistic about the future of the business and
Oh,
continue
yeah.
family legacy?
Most definitely. It started 93 years ago. My granddaddy invented this, and, his name was Big Joe. And so I feel like, Edward is his name and my son's name. And I feel like, he's 26 years old, excuse me, and he's going to run it for the future. I think it's going to be around another, hopefully 40 more years. Maybe he'll have some kids too, and some of the daughters will have some boys. Hey, nothing wrong with women either. We've got to have some girls in there too. Um, but but yeah, I feel very optimistic about Melvin's continuing for another 40, 50 years.
Wow. What a cool story. What a great place. I mean, listen, if you're going to Charleston, check out Melvin's. That is, well, let me ask you one more question. You got one more question in you, or you got time?
I got another thing I wanted to mention. I always forget to mention this too. And,
Yeah.
Chef Emeril Lagasse, came to see us in 1999. I don't put that banner up. I probably should, but he voted us as having the best cheeseburger in America back in those days. And that's what
Holy
really
cow.
put us on the map. We've always been known for great cheeseburgers because that's about 50% of our business too, is the burgers and then the barbecue. And, even though we've been voted best barbecue and best ribs, year after year, it's our burgers too that have really made Melvin's a staple here in Charleston. But that was our fame right there when he came along, and then MC Hammer came and saw us. But we've had a lot of different celebrities drop in. You probably remember Metal Art Lemon, part of the
Oh, yeah.
Globetrotters. I
No
was
trouble.
working the register one day and I looked up, I said, "Are you Metal Art Lemon?" And he went, "Yeah." And so I gave him his food on the house, obviously. And then he brought me back a basketball he signed for me. And so, yes, you never know who will come into Melvin's.
Oh, man, with the burgers. So what is it about the burgers?
I
What do
think
you do
it's
with it?
just, I don't know if it's anything special, but we got fresh iceberg lettuce we shred every day. The vine ripe tomatoes we slice by hand. We use purple onions, Duke's mayonnaise, French's mustard. We toast our buns, and we have a good third pound burger. And you know what? I know putting that mayonnaise on both sides of the bun, the crown and the heel, and toasting that bun, I tell you, and obviously the condiments is what makes that burger. Because a lot of buns come out and they haven't really been toasted on the top. They might be put on the grill, a flat top grill, and if you don't serve it nice and warm, right away, I think that then you kind of lose that taste. That's just my opinion. But you know, I don't think it's that hard to really figure out. But I don't like putting my condiments on my burger when it's served to me at the table.
Mhm.
That's the turnoff. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to put your own mayonnaise and
Yeah.
ketchup and mustard on. And I think the way we do it, and we prepare it and then we wrap it up and serve it to the customer. It doesn't get any better than that.
The mouth is watering now. I'm a big fan of both burgers and
Oh,
barbecue.
you got to try our golden onion rings too. That's a house donut style onion ring.
What man, uh, I come to Charleston every now and then. I have
Do
not
you?
been to Belbert, so this is you got me. The PR worked on me for sure. Do you,
Okay.
last question is, how much of your story, um, because it's such a cool and unique story, how much of your story do you share with and train your staff on sharing so that when people come in, they know that what Melvin,
Well,
not
uh,
just some barbecue joint, it's this place with this great legacy, third
yeah.
generation family run. Like that's an incredible story.
Well, I tell you one thing we have, that's part of that story is in my Melvin's handbook that we give every employee so they can read it and they know
Yeah.
what's Melvin's all about. It's just not another restaurant. We just, someone opened up. We also have it in the restaurants too on the walls. I got a picture of my granddaddy up there, which I never knew. He died before my dad was like in his 20s. So I didn't know him, obviously, but he was born in 1892. So at any rate, we got that on the wall, got my dad on the wall. And unfortunately, they wanted to put me up there too. So, um, my big old self. And so, and then we got some other frames throughout the restaurant that explains the history of Melvin's and what we're all about and some of the employees that have worked for us forever. I wanted to mention this too, and I don't know where he is today, but James Young, gosh, he was with my my family since 1954, and he can't even remember when he retired, but he's got to be in his 80s now, and I
Mm.
where he is. He was a great pit master and a hard worker. He grew up old school. And we've been very blessed to have these employees that have been with me. The turnover rate is really awful in the restaurant business. I don't know if a lot of owners do this on purpose, but they burn out their chefs. You know,
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
of people, they don't want to work 80-hour weeks like I grew up doing. I don't have my managers only work 50 hours a week now, 5 days a week, or maybe 52. But you know what? And if they do work over 50 hours, I thought, I said to myself, okay, I'm gonna pay them for that, even though they're on salary and I don't have to pay them. I feel like, hey, if you're going to stay there 52, 55 hours because someone didn't show up, I'm going to pay you for it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of chefs and workers, managers get burned out, working so many hours because they too want to see their family.
Well, um,
I don't even know if that was
no,
the
I
question you
think that,
asked.
well, no, it was. And the thing is, you retain people that way. I mean, when you work people too hard and you have people quitting all the time, that is extraordinarily expensive.
Oh, it's
Um,
very expensive. Yeah.
it's sort of, it's a hidden cost of not taking good care of your employees and giving them the good work life balance that they need and so forth. So I think I mean
Well, my
that's
dad did that to me back in those days, and he worked people too hard, but that's the way he was raised.
yeah,
And then when I became of age, later on in my 30s and 40s, I was like, I got to make some changes. This is not how people are going to work for us and for us to keep them. And I think it's worked out great. I give them good benefits. I give them bonuses if they reach a certain percentage. If I make money, you're gonna make more money. I pay them very, very well,
yep,
and and they being in the restaurant business, they get out at 11 p.m. at night. That's not late. They might think it's late, but I'm like, hey, if you're serving alcohol, you're not getting out till 2 a.m.
yeah,
So
right,
yeah, and then you got to you got your pros and cons on that as well. You got a bunch of drunks. Um, I've seen that growing up. It's just treat people, be kind to them with respect, be kind to them, and talk to them like they're a person. No one likes to be talked to like a dog. And or to be yelled at.
yeah,
Um, you know, and so if it's really it's an easy thing to understand. It's just some people, and I didn't go to school for this. I didn't graduate from college. Um, I went 2 years, and I knew my calling was not that wasn't me. It was I should have stayed in be in the restaurant business. And I told you, I said I really didn't think this was my livelihood, but I went through some trials and tribulations. Hey, when I left college and decided to come work for my dad, I wasn't listening to him, so he fired me. And so for 2 years, I was so stunned and embarrassed that he fired me. But he fired me because he was like, "No one's going to tell me how to run my business,
yeah,
especially you." And at 22 years old, so for 2 years I worked elsewhere, and I realized after then I was like, man, I begged to come back. I'll do anything you want me to do, I'll do it. And that taught me a valuable lesson right there.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, and this is what's so great about these third generation, fourth
Yeah,
generation family
yeah,
businesses that foundation is strong. The way you do things, the philosophies are carried along and then adjusted as needed for the next generation.
sure.
You can't work people to 80 hours. It's just, things
No,
change, but you have these foundational principles that will endure forever. And that is what keeps the business going and ensures that it will continue to thrive, which is those basic foundational, you know, principles of treating your customers well and treating your staff well and taking care of people and making them feel welcome, whether they're the employee or the guest. And, you know, just all the what you say are like, I mean, they seem simple and basic, but they're like, these are the foundational things. If we just do these, everything else takes care of itself, right?
It does. I'll give them the guidelines, and hopefully my children will follow this one day,
They
because
will,
we've
man.
already
They
paved
will.
the road for them.
You've led by example, and they sure
Yeah.
will. When they
I
start
hope
having ideas that don't, where
yeah.
they're like, Dad would. So, well, hey, I have had the best time speaking with you, and I want to let you roll so you can get on your trip to go see that beautiful heavenly property down there in Augusta, and have a safe trip. Have a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you.
It was a pleasure
Really.
meeting you too, and I will absolutely. I'll be there within the next few months. I
All
come
right, let me know
once
when you come
twice
by.
a year. I will definitely let you know so I can
I'll
I
hook
can
you up with
hang
some
out with you.
Western barbecue.
Let's do it. I'm
All
in.
right, buddy.
All
A
right, man.
pleasure. Thank you,
Have a
sir.
good one. See you.
Yes, sir. You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.